Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drumfills Kafé. My name is Denis, and welcome to a first episode of this 11th season. My God, 11 seasons already. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. As usual, I'll invite you to go check out the Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram pages of Drumfills Kafé, to do a like and to subscribe to those pages. And of course, to check out the website to know all about the past seasons, what's coming up, editorials, all the stuff we've done so far can be found on the website, drumfillscafe.com. Thanks so much. Okay, let's get to our guest. I'm very excited about tonight's guest. My guest tonight is a Berklee College music graduate who has studied with drummers such as Ed Uraby. I hope I said that correctly. Ian Froman, John Ramsey, and Ron Savage. Has had a great career so far, playing with such artists as Natalie Cole, Cher, Madonna, Miley Cyrus, Richard Marx, Paul Anka, and Paul Stanley. Yeah, and so many others. He was also part of Rockstar INXS and Rockstar Supernova in the early 2000s, and of course has been the drummer for NBC show The Voice for more than 26 seasons. It's been 26 seasons this past December. Very exciting. So please welcome the extremely versatile Nate Morton.
Hey, what's happening, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm wearing a sweater because this is Canada.
Yes,
but, I'm happy.
Yes.
Happy to,
as you do. Hey, Denis, before we jump in, there was one small omission in my drum instructor sort of list there, and that would be my drum instructor Grant Menifee, who was the first instructor I ever had, starting just before high school. So I can't not give Grant his flowers because he definitely put me on the right path.
Well, I had noted him. I forgot to add him, so thanks for letting me know. But yes, so I do want to talk about him because I found out that he's a teacher for many professional drummers today, actually.
He is.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. But before we start, I guess this is the lesson studio, your practice rehearsal.
This is my garage that I have turned into a studio. I call it my Garudio, right? If it were in the kitchen, I would call it, I guess, the cachudio. Or in the attic, it would be the atticudio.
Okay, it's going to be dad jokes all night. I'm good with that.
Well, I'm a dad, so buckle up. But yes, this is my Garudio, and this is where I teach. This is also where I record. You'll see there's an acoustic kit behind me that's mic'd up, and pretty much is where I live, sort of most of my days when I'm home. Now, I'm feeling a little intimidated, Denis, because you have some very distinguished educational accomplishment placards and so on back there. I have none. I have none behind me. I don't have any. I don't know.
Because my studio is not good looking as yours. It's got a bit more, how can I explain, rock and roll, if you will. There's a bit more stuff around. So this is where I do the podcasting. But yes, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to show off. It's just I put that up and then I figured,
No, I got on and I was like, I don't know. Do I have to take an IQ test before I can be a podcast guest with you? I don't know. Anyway,
there's nothing to be intimidated about at all. Trust me. That one here is something I did when I was in Japan. And
that was my next question. What's BAM? What's BAM? There's BAM everywhere. What's that?
Yeah, well, that's BAM. Okay, well, I guess we're talking about me for 30 seconds. But yes, I had a percussion group that's been I've been happy to and lucky to travel across the world with. And this is a souvenir from one of the shows we did in Japan, actually, in Shizuoka.
Amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations.
So, yeah. It's been an amazing ride with them. And I guess I'm doing a little bit of promo with them, just showing off what we do. And it's
exclusively percussion?
Percussion comedy. So if you think the way I explain it, because it's hard to explain, it would be if you take the Blue Man Group and the Three Stooges and put them together.
I can go with that.
It's kind of a physical comedy percussion show, and that's that's the best I can explain it. But you have to see it to understand what it is, because it's out there a little.
Will I have an opportunity? Can I find it online? Can I?
Oh yeah, for sure. I can send you all that. We did the last big show we did was in Cleveland. It was a kids show for.
I'm sorry.
No, it was really fun. It was really fun. It was awesome. It was awesome because it was just. I mean, here's the thing about the United States. The United States has a lot of beautiful old theaters. And we've played those theaters, and they sound amazing. Honestly, the acoustics in those theaters are just really, really nice. I can't say we don't. We have some nice places in Canada, but they're not as old or as, you know, ornamental and all that stuff. So every time I walk into one, I'm like, oh wow, this is nice. They preserved this and so forth. And it had that 1920s feel and everything. But the kids, it was filled to the brim with kids. It was amazing, and the people are just so nice.
Has BAM toured Europe?
Yes, we've up to, not to boost, but we've up to about 25 countries, 5 continents so far.
I ask because when you mention old, when you mention old and venues, I immediately think of Europe, because I've done tours in Europe where it's like, oh, the venue we're playing tonight used to be a church, or it used to be a train station, or it used to be whatsoever, a school. And to your point, it's really, I mean, you're, in terms of having a good gig, you're kind of almost already 3/4 of the way there when you walk into like a really cool venue that has great vibe and great presence. So I would think that you would have a blast doing that.
For sure. I mean, I've played those old places. I've played this, you know, these old churches where there's ruins, you know, just to the right of me, and I'm like, that's like 1500 something, and I'm like, oh my god, you know, and people are just like stacked to the gills just looking at us in these ruins. I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Like, wow.
You'll have to send me some examples. I would love to check it out.
For sure. But let's go back to
this is Nate Morton's podcast. I've been interviewing my guest Dennis Jr. over here, and we're talking about his
Sure, why not? Why not? At this point, whatever happens, man.
Don't you dare edit any of this out. You better keep this in, Dennis. This is good stuff. I love it.
All right.
So you continue. Sorry.
So back to you, because we can go back and forth. But anyways, and then we can talk about the honors there. But
yes.
So back to you. Yes. So yes, you had the. I mean, man, what a career so far. Honestly, Funkmaster Friday, if I may call you that way.
Please.
Let's get into it. I mean, yes. I mean, Berkeley, all that stuff. Let's go back a bit. I always ask this question. I know it's kind of a cliche question, but I'm always curious because there's always so many different answers to this question. But what is it that made you go, wow, drums? I want to pick up those. I want to play those. I want to do something with that. What was it for you? Was it the Kiss that you mentioned, or what was it exactly?
Even earlier than Kiss. So my earliest musical influences. So my parents went to a college in the United States called Tennessee State University. And if you're not familiar, Tennessee State University is an HBCU, which is a historically Black college or university. And what that means is the marching band, for example, is not your traditional Sousa marching band. It's a band that gets on the field and makes you, you know, shake your butt, you know what I mean, and you jam to it, right? So I remember going to football games with my parents, and that being something that I was like, wow, this is blowing me away, right? So that was one thing. And I used to go to home, I used to be at home, and I would take a pillow and I would put it, like, I would strap a pillow to my waist with a belt, and I would march around playing the sides of that pillow, pretending that it was a marching, like a marching bass drum, right?
Cool.
So that's the maybe earliest thing. But then there was also around that same time, and this, speaking of cliche, this may sound cliche, Animal from the Muppets. Animal from the Muppets. I mean, I started playing when I was 5 or 6 years old. So I'm a kid, and you know, maybe I'm not such a bright kid, so I don't distinguish. I just see Animal and it's this dude playing drums. and Animal from the Muppets was, you know, if Animal was a kid today, in this country especially, they would have put him on medication, right? You know what I'm saying? They would have put him on medication. So for me, Animal was like a hyper spaz, incredibly ultra kinetic person that channeled that destructive energy into playing drums. And I thought, that's the model. You know what I mean? I can appreciate that. I can fit in there. So Animal from the Muppets and the Tennessee State University Marching Band were my two earliest musical influences.
Nice. Very nice. That's the other thing about the States, though. There's a lot of marching bands compared to Canada. And That I'm jealous about, because I would have so much to love to do that as a kid as well. Yeah.
Well, there
Yeah.
are a lot of marching bands, and then not only are there a lot of marching bands, but even within the genre, if you will,
Mhm.
marching band, there are so many disciplines within it, because there's obviously there's military marching bands, which are very,
Mm-mm.
rudimentary, but then there's also DCI drum corps, which is hyper technical, right?
Mm.
So on the one side of the spectrum, by the way, I'm a little outside my lane because I'm not really a drum like a marching band guy, but
Mm.
on the one side of the spectrum, you've got DCI, which is about as technical as it gets in
Yeah.
terms of right, and then on the other side, you've got HBCUs, which are about as like party as it gets. And they
Mm-mm.
work their butts off, don't get me wrong. But just in terms of the overall experience, they're two completely different things that are equal in measure in terms of entertainment level. For me
I
anyway.
think I think so too. Yeah, because just I mean, there's the whole coordination of actually walking with it and doing those moves
Sure.
as you're doing something, on the snare drum. So yeah.
Well, and not to go, like I said, not to go too far down this road because it's not really my lane, but
Mm.
you're not even just walking with it, Dennis. Like if you watch those DCI guys, they are literally doing drill that requires them to run and cover 30 yards of field in
Yeah.
that amount of time while
Yeah.
playing these intricate parts. It's awe-inspiring.
Nice. So when did you start playing? Is it at 5? Was it at 5 that you had a drum kit, or was it later on? Or
I mean, I would have said that what I was playing was a drum kit when I was 5, but my parents would have called them cardboard boxes and ice cream cartons and would have said, "Get that crap out of the middle of the living room floor." So around 5, I was like building drum sets out of whatever.
okay,
And then around, I think I was 6 when I got my first proper, well, I would have been 6 when I got a Muppets drum set from
nice.
Sears. And
Okay,
I
yeah, the typical
I
thing. Yeah,
decimated it.
yeah, for
With
sure.
my idol being Animal. Animal
Yeah.
would have been very proud at the level of destruction I submitted this drum kit to. I decimated this thing. I played it into the ground. So then maybe it was 7 when I got my first proper sort of drum set,
Drum
as
set.
we call a traditional drum set, real heads,
Mm.
lugs,
Yeah,
hardware, etc.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was 7.
And from then on until you met, which is the person you mentioned at the start, which I didn't mention in the intro, but Grant Menifee.
Yes, Grant Menifee.
Um, how that came about to meet him and to start lessons with him?
Grant, if I'm not mistaken, Grant was basically starting his studio, getting his drum teaching studio going, or practice going, if you will, right around the same time that I was just about, what was I? Maybe I was in 7th grade or so,
Okay,
7th
yeah.
or 8th grade. And so what he was doing was he was hosting these open houses. He had
Oh,
flyers
nice.
around to various schools, and he was hosting these open houses. And so in his room, he would have a handful of drummers and their parents, and he would say, "Here's what I do, and here's how I do it," and so on and so forth. And that's how we came on each other's radar. And I truly pursued him from the middle of middle school, so that would have been like the 7th grade or so, into the 8th grade, because I would have been going to Oakland Mills. That's where I went to high school. Oakland
Okay.
Mills High School, 9th grade, and I knew I wanted to be in marching band. Okay.
Hmm.
But I knew I also didn't want to carry anything especially heavy. So what does that add up to? That means you want to play snare,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to
Yeah,
play
but
bass drum.
the
You
toms
don't want to
or yeah,
play quads and all of that.
yeah.
Just play, I want to play snare. Well, what that means is you have to be quite good. You have to be able to, negotiate the snare book, if you will. So I basically started studying with Grant in middle school so that I could develop the ability to be a strong enough player that upon
Mhm.
entering high school, I'd be able to play snare.
Hmm.
Now,
Cool.
mind you, I started playing when I was 6, 7, and between the time that I started playing, through up to meeting Grant, somewhere in there, I think around the 4th grade, there was a guy who used to come to the school that I was attending at the time, and he would come and once a week, and with myself and the other drummer at the school, his name was Jono. Jono and I would meet this guy, and he showed us like some rudiments, or he showed us like kind of how to hold the sticks.
Right, right.
But other than that, from age 7 up to connecting with Grant, it was just playing along to songs, playing the songs all day, playing the songs.
I think that's most how we all start. I mean, that's what I did, and I'm going to date myself because I basically had Dr. Feelgood, the Motley Crue album.
That was the first CD I owned.
Yeah, and
so Kiss Dynasty is the first album I owned, and Motley Crue Dr. Feelgood is the first CD I owned.
Okay, it was one of my first tape. I had tape. That's what I had because Walkmans were popular back then.
Yes,
and like you were saying, it was just basically play, practice, just listening and try to copy whatever Tommy was doing basically on that album.
Earlier, you said that you and I were about the same age, but based on what you've just said, I surmise you are younger than me because when I was playing the songs, it was more like the song ends, plow, and I was like, can I play this song again?
For those who don't know what that is,
that was me picking up the needle. Up the needle. Yeah. Any of your audience, 30. Well, you know what? I almost said anyone 30 years old or younger will have no idea what I'm talking about. That said, vinyl is like on a come up. Like vinyl is making a major comeback, and people are super into it now.
Yes, these days, yes, for sure.
Yes,
for sure.
that would have been me playing along to vinyl records.
To record, okay.
Yep.
But I think there's a good thing about doing that, about playing to records, because you kind of build your kind of understanding of song structure, and 100%. The whole this is a chorus, this is a verse, which we'll talk about, of course, with the voice later on. But I think that's a great school to do that, even though you don't even know what you're doing, you're just copying basically.
Yeah, but it's a more fun way to play time. It's a more fun way to work on your time than just playing to a metronome.
Yes, for sure. Because there's musicality to it, there's an emotion to it, there's that sort of thing, for sure. Cool. As you mentioned, Grant is kind of well respected because there's a lot of people that came out from his teaching. There's Matt Alpern, I think, Mike Reed, from Alicia Keys, Janet Jackson. There's you. I mean, there seemed to be something very
John Theodore. John Theodore from formerly of Mars Volta. And I think Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, exactly. He was part, for sure. So what is it about Grant that was so unique or special that you got from him?
This will be a short answer. A lot of instructors are frustrated players. They're guys who started their career path with the intention of being professional players. I'm not saying all. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all, but many are frustrated players, and maybe things didn't work out, and so they said, "Okay, well, I'll settle down and I'll just teach. I'll do that." And Grant, on the contrary, was basically a player who said, "I'm not really trying to tour the world and be this like rock star. I actually have the intention of being a really good drum instructor. That's actually my passion. That's my first passion." So when Grant attended Berkeley and studied the things that he studied, it was kind of with the mindset of, I'm going to go back and I'm going to take over the world as like this badass drum instructor, which is what he did. So I would point to that as being a major delineating line between Grant and not Grant. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm gonna quote something from your social media, if you don't mind.
Oh God,
basically, you were asking Grant what do you teach, basically curriculum or what they need to know, and basically just to summarize, sort of paraphrase, basically Grant's philosophy, if you will, was to show you a toolbox and to basically get you as much versatility as possible, because if you end up in a rock band 5 years later, if the rock band ends, what do you do, sort of thing. And you talk about that and the fact that basically that toolbox came in and great. I'm trying to find my words in English for some reason.
Should I switch to French?
Yeah, my French wants to come out.
Je parle français un petit peu. No, not
But anyway,
not
that you
really.
could say
So,
yes to any gig, basically, and that's what happened with
yeah.
the Grammys when you played with Lofty, I think, for instance. But that's an interesting way of thinking about it, is to give you sort of a toolbox to be able to say yes to any gig. Would you talk about that?
Well, I mean, I I have come to understand as I've taught more that the way you sound as a player, like the way that you play, is the intersection of everything you've learned and
Mm,
everything you've listened to.
mm,
That ultimately is what results in how you play, what you sound like when you play. And I am fortunate that Grant gave me that toolbox, to use your term, in the sense that, I might be on a, I don't know, whatever. I'm on a rock gig,
mm.
but I've also got this Latin stuff in my background, thanks to Grant in great part. I've also got, this jazz stuff in my background. And so if you were to put a player who exclusively only plays that genre versus another player playing that genre, but they've got X, Y, and Z additionally in their background, well, maybe those X, Y, and Z elements creep into this other player. And maybe as a listener, you kind of go like, I kind of like this guy more. I'm not sure why.
Mm,
I don't really can't put my finger on it. There's just something a little different.
mm,
And so to me, that's the kind of thing that's going to make you stand out. So if you're a purist, I have respect for that. But I also have respect for if you're playing a particular genre, but you allow other influences to
come in,
sneak
yeah,
their way in there as well. I
yeah,
think it's going
yeah,
to
for
make you
sure,
sound more. I think it's going to make you sound more unique as a player.
yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
that applies. I think that's a global application. If you're a guy playing reggae, the guy who only plays reggae is going to sound like an awesome reggae drummer. The guy who's playing reggae but also has these other things, I mean, there are certainly reggae purists. There are probably reggae purists who would go like, "Oh no, that's not a reggae thing to do. That's not a tradition." But for me, I always wanted to do something and have elements that separated me from guys who only did that one thing,
One thing, right?
right?
Yeah.
So that's yeah. So to that extent, I mean, that's grand. At the same time, that started very, very, very early because I've shared times before. The first records that I got, my father signed up to the Columbia House Records and Tape Club,
Yeah,
right?
which you can have like
Right.
11 tapes for like a
Correct,
dollar or
correct,
whatever it was. Yes, yes.
correct. And periodically, he would just order things and have them to me. And so I remember one of the first shipments that he sent to me was a Peter Frampton record, which at the
Oh,
moment I can never remember the name of that record.
it's
Doggone it.
not it's
But
not Comes Alive, no.
it's not Comes Alive. It
No.
was a record that has a song, I Can't Stand It No More. That was like the
Okay.
single from that record. I can't stand it no more. Oh God. Singing? What am I doing? That's not my
You
lane.
mean you don't sing in the
So,
voice?
no. So it was a Peter Frampton record. It was Michael Jackson, Off the Wall. It was
Oh, that's a great record.
George
Yeah.
Clinton, Uncle Jam Wants You,
Oh, that's nice.
and Kiss, Alive.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it kind of started then. So I
Yeah.
was already this mass of random influences
This
when
is
I
yeah.
came to Grant. So the idea that that would have been his sort of blueprint for teaching, bring it.
Cool.
That was my thing.
Cool.
And then as you I think mentioned earlier, that went on to Berkeley, where I basically wanted to feel like,
Yeah.
call me for anything. Call me for anything. Either
Yeah.
either either A, I'll know what to do, or B, give me an hour or so, I'll figure out my best way to fake it. I never said no to anything.
Cool. And to summarize Berkeley, because we're already 20 minutes into this, and I want to get to the nitty gritty of
Okay.
stuff. But to summarize Berkeley, what was your experience like, and what do you retain the most from Berkeley, from the experience in Berkeley?
Here's short answer again. Ready? I used to say that moving to LA was the best thing that I ever did for my musical career.
Hmm.
And number two was going to Berkeley.
Hmm.
Then I would go, nah, going to Berkeley, then moving to LA. But I realized that they're actually intertwined because one without the other would not have worked. Right? So Berkeley prepares you, to put it very simply, Berkeley College of Music is a very accurate, in real time microcosm of the music industry.
Okay.
Everything that occurs in the music industry occurs at Berklee College of Music.
Okay.
People record albums out there. People record at Berklee. You have to be able to organize a studio session or a gig or whatever it is. You have to be able to do that at Berklee. And then obviously the skill set that you get. And I was fortunate. I was fortunate that I kind of had a game plan. Like I wanted to be the Latin guy. I wanted to have that in my bag. So, hey, Grant, I'm going to Berklee. Who's the Latin guy? Oh, my classmate, rest in peace. Ed Uribe was my classmate. He's the Latin guy. So my first two semesters, I sought Ed Uribe. Okay, who's the jazz guy? Who's the jazz guy?
Right, you could go to multiple, right, I see. Yeah.
Alan Dawson disciple, John Ramsey. So I sought John Ramsey. So I'll bring it in for landing with this. A place like Berklee, if you just go in and go, okay, hey, yeah, I'm here. Go ahead, teach me. Then you're going to get kind of cookie cutter, you don't really know what you're after stuff. Yeah. If you go in kind of the mindset, like you have to go to a college like Berklee, not to be taught, but to learn. You have to go in and with a mindset of, I want to learn the specific things I want to learn. You can't go in like, hey, go ahead, teach me. Right? Yeah. It's a subtle distinction, but it's an important one. So Berklee gave me the smorgasbord of what I wanted. And I was able to go like, I'll have the number 19 from this column and the number 12 from that column and the 7 from that column. And then when you marry that to being surrounded by like-minded players your age, you know what I'm saying? Like you take all the weirdos. Like I was the weirdo at my high school, right? So you take every weirdo from every high school, every music nerd,
and you put them in the same place.
Together. Super fertile ground. Super fertile ground.
Yeah, I would have been happy. I would have been happy because I was also the weirdo.
I know. I get it. And by the way, when I use words like nerd and weirdo and any of that stuff, I'm right in there. Like that's a compliment. I'm putting myself right on in there. So.
Yeah, I look, I wave my nerd flag anytime I can. So don't worry about it. And I just want to ask, because I saw a photo, because I'm a huge fan, of course, of him, but there's a certain British pop star that gives you your graduation.
Let's see. Yes, I think I know who you're talking about. Mr. Sumner. Mr. Sumner, yes. You're referring to.
Mr. Ted, if I can recall.
Yes. Yes. What? Yes.
And how come? Was he there for the ceremonies? I'm curious. We're talking about Sting, of course, for people who just don't know who Mr. Sumner is.
So
very quickly,
Berklee,
I'm just curious.
So Berklee, like many colleges, has like an honorary doctorate, and they'll give an honorary doctorate to particular people, and sometimes that coincides with graduation, and so they'll say, "Oh, this person is receiving an honorary doctorate, and they're going to be our, guests at graduation." Or the honorees, if you will, at graduation. So that particular year was Nancy Wilson, the jazz singer, not Nancy Wilson from Heart, Nancy Wilson, the jazz singer, and Sting. So Sting basically handed me my degree from Berklee. He was the honorary doctorate. And as I walked across and I said, wow, cool, you're amazing. Thank you. And he gave me my degree. There you go. So then flash forward literally 30 years later. Do
you mind if I share this? Because I don't know if you mind, but I have the photographs from your social media, and I just want to show people. I just want to show people, since we were talking about this, what we're talking about. I'm going to share. Hopefully, with the interwebs, it works. There we go.
Look at that.
So there's young Nate with a certain.
I was a puppy back then.
So young Nate, of course, with Sting, which I find very interesting, but he's talking about it. And and then 30 years later, if I can find the photograph, which I have somewhere, I'm just going to look at it. So there you go.
Yes, from young pup to old guy. And I'm talking about me, not Sting.
Yeah, I was about to say. Oh, okay, I was talking about
Sting. Sting still looks the same. I'm the only one who's aged in this scenario. I don't know how that's fair. I guess I need to start doing more yoga.
Yeah, exactly. Did he remember? Did he make the connection? I was curious.
I don't think that he would have remembered. Like if I was like, "Hey, when you were at Berklee," but I showed him that same picture, so he went, "Oh my God,"
Cool.
So,
cool.
Yes.
Very nice.
And he was lovely. It was great having him on the show.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're gonna talk about the show, but yeah, for sure, I'm a huge Sting fan. I was even in high school.
Same.
Everybody was in Metallica. I had Ten Summoner's Tale in my head because of course I had Sting, and of course I had Vinny who's playing that album, and I was just
Yes.
trying to understand what the hell was going on when I was 14. You know,
And that's one of the greatest. That record is one of the greatest sounding records
yeah,
that I own. Like when I want to sort of test my studio environment,
mm,
that's what I put on. I
I
put
put
that
on,
on to see like
yeah,
how things sound. I mean, that's
yeah.
a terrific record.
It is. It is. I recommend it to anyone who hasn't heard it for. So you
Absolutely.
graduate. Sting gives you the. You move to
Yes.
LA in '99. What made you move
Yes.
to LA in '99?
Moving to LA was sort of a process of elimination kind of situation. I didn't mean to rhyme right then, but
No, no, it
I
was
can't help
beautiful. It was
I can't
nice.
help myself. Uh, so let's do this. It's 98 or 99, to
Right.
your point. I'm driving around Boston and I'm actually looking at homes. I'm actually looking at like homes
Oh,
that are
okay.
on the market
All right.
because at the time in my I don't know, mid late 20s, I was probably 26, 7, something like that.
Okay.
I was playing. I was very busy. I was playing jazz brunches. I was playing, rock cover bands, funk original bands, calypso wedding bands. So I was very busy and I'm a loud person just by name, like even beyond even take the drums out of it. I know you're looking like, really? What? Yes,
I would
I'm a
say
loud,
talkative. I'm not sure about loud, but talkative for sure.
I'm a
Yeah.
loud person. So so apartment dwelling is not ideal for me. Well,
No,
I don't care. It's not ideal for my neighbors.
I was about to say. I know exactly. Having the experience myself of bringing the drums in my apartment.
Well, exactly. Right.
Yeah, not
So
conduct.
I'm looking at houses and I kind of go like, I don't really know if I started playing drums when I was 6 and practice as much as I did and put as much time and energy and effort into this as I did to settle down in Boston
Mm,
and play in a wedding band. With all due respect to anyone in Boston playing in a wedding band,
for
I
sure.
just felt in my, mid late 20s, I felt like there was more I wanted to do. All right, so at that time, there were 4 destinations at that time. New York City. All right, well, I'm not a diehard jazzer.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough snow to last me a friggin' lifetime, right? So New
You're
York
talking to
City,
Canadian. Yeah, you're talking to Canadians for sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Second, Nashville. Nashville
Yes.
is awesome. I was
Yes.
born there. I was born in
Oh, okay.
Nashville.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Although there were other styles going on, at that time it was primarily country music. It was
Okay.
primarily 80% or more you're going to be playing country music.
For
And
sure.
that wasn't where my heart was. Number 3, Atlanta, Georgia. There had been a
Oh,
few
okay.
different bands to come out of Atlanta, a few different
Okay.
artists to come out of Atlanta, and it was kind of like on a come up. I did not think that the sample size was big enough. Like I wasn't confident that Atlanta was going to be a mecca on the
Mm,
level that Nashville or New York City,
York was, yeah, yeah, for sure.
right? So I didn't have my heart set on that. And I looked at LA and I thought, okay, number 1, LA is more laid back. I felt like that was more my personality.
Okay.
But the real talk, as they say, real talk, I thought to myself, if I'm going to go somewhere and suffer for my art,
Mm.
it might as well be where it's 85 degrees and sunny every day. And that's the truth. That's the
Yeah.
truth. The other thing too, by the way, and I'll just throw this in there really quickly. LA, I found to be at that time anyway, more forgiving. And when I say more
Okay.
forgiving, here's what I mean. If you
Okay.
try to move to Brooklyn at that time, you're going to find maybe a studio apartment. It's going to be $2,000 a month. This is even
Mm.
back then. And they're going to
Mm-mm.
want first, last, and a deposit. So even before you set foot on pay dirt, you're $6,000 down, right? When I and should you go through a month where you're slow or thin or not busy,
Yeah. Yeah.
bye. Like and it's not even like you can pick up a job at CVS and cover that expense. It's just
No, it's
very
yeah.
expensive, which I
Yeah.
realize sounds hypocritical coming from someone who lives in Los Angeles, which is a very expensive city. But at that time, my rent, I lived in the Valley. I lived in the San Fernando Valley. I moved out to an apartment that was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and it was $750 a month. So I felt like worst case scenario, I submit my job to Home Depot. I can my application to Home Depot, and I can cover my mortgage. I can get by.
Right,
you know, so that was LA. That was what it was. And when I drove out across the country, and when I got here, and I looked up, and I just saw clear blue skies, and I was like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, this is amazing. And it's been I've been very fortunate. I've had a very good run here, and it was definitely the right choice and the right fit for me.
And it's interesting because I remember meeting, and I'm going to screw this up, Liberty DeVito at one of the drum fests. And he said, basically, you got to move where the music is. Don't stay in XYZ, Florida. Don't move where the music is. Go where the music is. So,
well, like if your intention is to, what is the word they say? Go to the next level, quote unquote. Yeah. Then yes, you absolutely have to. And that's a relative philosophy. In other words, if you live in, let's just say, Troy, no, that's a bad example. If you live in
the Timbuktu or someplace,
a suburb of Chicago. If you live in a suburb of Chicago, right, then then if you want to go to the quote unquote next level, then my advice is move to LA. If moving to LA is unreasonable, move to Chicago. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I mean when I say it's a relative thing. You know, if you live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and you can't move to Nashville, move to Birmingham, move to Huntsville. You know what I mean? You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yes, for me at that time, it was all or nothing. And I remember people would say, how long will you struggle before you give up? And I said, as long as it takes. And I'm not one of these guys like, no plan B. If you have a plan B, then you're going to use it and you're going to fail. Like, that's not me. I'm just telling you, in other words, I wouldn't tell someone that. I wouldn't tell anyone, hey, man, you can't have a plan B, otherwise you're going to fail. That being said, that was my feeling. That was my feeling. My feeling was, I don't want to have a plan B. It's only plan A.
Plan A, yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, it seemed to work out because linking to the next part of the interview, you started to I mean, all these players, all these artists, Natalie Cole, Michael Bolton. Was it Natalie Cole first? How did the ball get rolling in LA for
you?
you?
The first LA based, once I moved to LA, the first audition I ever did was for a singer named Billy Myers. And Billy Myers had a single at that time called Kiss the Rain. And what was happening at that time period when I moved to LA was an artist would record a record, and a new artist, for example. And on that record would have been potentially session greats, would have been like session legend. Kenny Aronoff was on Billy Myers record. Exactly. So, but we're talking about 20 some odd years ago, 25 years ago, you're probably not getting Kenny Aronoff to go on the road for $1,000 a week. That's probably not happening, right? So you're looking, not unless you're like his niece or something.
Yeah. No, right? the man commands a good salary for sure.
He sure does. He sure does. And deservedly so.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
A new artist would come out, and because you couldn't take the session pro guys on the road, you would have to audition for a band, and you would get new guys, young players, looking for their gigs. So that was me. So the first audition that I ever did in Los Angeles, California, was for an artist named Billy Myers. And as I mentioned, she had a song called Kiss the Rain, and I was fortunate to get that. So that was actually the first gig that I ever landed upon moving to LA. And then there were just several little auditions like that. And one thing kind of led to another thing. And it's funny. Sometimes someone asks me, when did you know you'd made it?
Well, that is a good question, because you wonder, because if you're an artist, you're always kind of doubting yourself. You're always kind of like questioning yourself. So yeah, actually, that is a good question.
You know what my answer is? When someone says, when did you know you'd made it? I say, I'll let you know when it happens.
Yeah.
No part of it, no part of my life or timeline feels like, ah, I
Yeah.
made it.
Yeah.
I've crossed the line. I'm there.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel that way at all. Every next thing was every next thing. So when I was in Boston, oh, look at this. I'm playing in a happening wedding band in Boston. I'm supporting myself out of Berkeley. Out of Berkeley, I'm supporting myself full-time playing drums. Oh, cool. I'm doing a jazz gig with this very notable Berkeley jazz fusion guitar player. Cool. Oh, I'm playing with Dale Bozio, who at the time was a national, she's still a national artist, but at the time she was a national artist based in Boston. So, wow, I'm in Nashville. I'm in Boston. I'm touring with a national artist.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to move to LA. Oh,
Mhm.
wow, I landed this gig with Billy Myers. I'm an LA touring drummer. So it's always just been this
Yeah.
incremental yes. There's
Yeah. Yeah.
never been like a I'm here, then suddenly I'm here.
Yeah.
Even doing the first notable sort of TV show that I did, even doing Rockstar.
Rockstar, right?
I mean, Rockstar came along a certain timeline, and upon landing that gig, I didn't go shopping for my Ferrari and house in Malibu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
another thing along the
Yeah.
line. So everything that I've done has felt very linear, and I've been very fortunate in the sense that that linear line, has a little bit of an arc to it. I've
Hmm.
been very fortunate, but it's never felt like, oh, one day. You know, the funniest is Sheryl Crow. I think it's Sheryl Crow, and she says something along the lines of, "It only took me 15 years to become an overnight success."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, but it's always like that. It's always like, oh, what are these guys? You know, like,
Right,
first time I hear about them. Yeah, they've been playing for 10 years, basically. But you're the
right,
first time you hear about them, for instance. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So yes, so
yeah.
it's never felt like that. It's always felt like a linear sort of path that I've been on.
Cool.
Yeah.
You did a residency with Cher, which is my mom's favorite, but I'm curious. But she seems so down to earth. Talk to me about. I'm very curious about playing in Vegas as a residency of Vegas. How was that
Yes,
experience?
yes, yes.
And playing, of course, with with Cher. My God, I'm curious to know
Well, I
about
mean,
that.
Cher is one of the one namers. You know, Cher, Madonna,
Yeah,
Sting. She's
yeah.
in that one namer
Name her.
category.
Yeah, exactly.
And she is literally, Dolly. That would be another one
Yeah,
namer, by
yeah.
the way.
Which I've met once. She was really nice.
She's I hate cliches, but she's literally salt of the earth. Like, she is like
Seriously. Yeah.
everything wonderful that you would think that she is, she is. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to flip us back to Cher, and I'm going to say the same thing. Cher
Cool.
is the most down to earth, easy to be in a room with.
Mm.
Just,
Yeah.
I can't say enough. I've worked with so many people who have done so much less, who are so much more difficult.
Mm.
And I can't say this universally, but on balance, I find the people who have done the most and who are the most successful don't have anything to prove. They're not
Mm.
carrying around any, like, I got a, like, getting chip on their shoulder. They're like,
Mm.
I'm good. Like, I'm good. Whether or
There's
not
no ego.
there's no, you can dig
Yeah.
me or not. I don't really care. Like,
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
good. I don't need to
Mm.
prove to you anything. I don't need to be a jerk to you to assert any level of power or whatever it is. I'm good. They're very self-assured. They're very confident. They're very good. And so that was Cher. Cher was amazing. She was
Mm.
amazing.
And
In
as
that tour,
the residency, because you stay for a long period of time at one spot playing that show, how was that? How was that experience?
touring in place, you call that.
Yeah.
Touring in place. I was never a large fan of Las Vegas. I'm
Mm.
not a gambler,
Mm.
and it just wasn't really my vibe.
Same. Yeah.
That being said, when you take a certain amount of time of your life and you're spending 2 consecutive months, 3 consecutive months in Vegas, and I would have friends who would say, "Oh, that's so cool. Are you staying in Caesar's Palace?" And I was like, "Oh, hell no. No, I'm not staying in Caesar's Palace. We're staying in a little condo building
Right.
a mile and a half off the strip, because
Right.
staying at Caesar's Palace would be like attempting to sleep in the middle of a shopping mall."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no, right?
It's
So
very
so
tempting.
Right. So we're staying in a condo, and I had a kitchen, and I would go shopping, and I learned where the locals go off the strip, and I had a great time. I had a great time in Vegas, and I really enjoyed it very, very, very much. Cher's tour manager at the time also would do these ticket. This is a little bit of a what do you call that? A digression. This whole interview is a digression.
I don't think we'll do it. I mean, I'm hoping for an hour 30. I hope.
Okay. Well, okay. Good luck. So no, but he would do like these ticket exchanges, and he would basically go to all the other Vegas shows, all the Cirque shows, and
Yes.
Blue Man Group and Human Nature, and would say, hey, you guys want to do a ticket exchange? I can get you guys a dozen tickets for, well, it would be more than a dozen because there were more than a dozen in our company. But it was like, I can get you guys 50 tickets for Cher if you guys want to give us 50 tickets for Blue Man or for whatever it was. So it was a lot of fun. And I don't party, right? So I don't do that thing. But in terms of going and getting to hear different groups and different shows and so on in Vegas, it was a blast. And it really... it changed my whole attitude about it. I didn't love Vegas before Cher. I love Vegas now.
And any tips for someone who wants to do a residency? Like you're doing the same show over and over again, like to stay fresh, to stay, sort of into that show. What was your way to deal with that?
Long ago, I was playing a show in Boston at a blues bar, and that blues bar happened to be hosting the 30th anniversary tour of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, yeah, classic, yeah.
Yes. I met at that show Carl Anderson, rest in peace. Incredible vocalist, played Judas. He was the original Judas.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
So I meet Carl Anderson, I'm talking to him, and I say, kind of what you just said to me. I said, Carl, you go out and you walk to the same spot on the stage every night, 8 shows a week, and you say, Jesus, Jesus, listen to me, or whatever it is, And I said, how do you keep that fresh? And he didn't even skip a beat. He looked at me and he said, it's a different audience every night. Different audience every night. Different audience every night. And I'm going to dovetail that into my all-time favorite basketball player is Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant would walk out on the court with a sprained shoulder and a, friggin' hyperextended whatever, but he would go out and he would play. There was no, what do they call it now in the NBA? The load management. I don't know if you follow the NBA. I don't know if this is a thing, but players take the night off now. Just for load management. Oh, I'm tired. I'm not going to play. I'm tired.
No, right? I, of course, being Canadian, it's hockey and we play with, bloody teeth and
correct the
bones, so.
Well, Kobe Bryant has said, or had said, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, had said on record, listen, we could be playing a back-to-back. Maybe I'm playing in Milwaukee on a back-to-back. Some parent and child saved their money potentially to buy tickets to come to that game to see me play. And I'm not going to disappoint them. So that's kind of how I approach all that. If I walk out on stage and I feel sick as a dog, or I feel tired, or I'm like, wow, this is our 7th show in a row. It wouldn't have been that with Cher. It was very easy. But my 7th show in a row, whatever it is, I just think to myself, somewhere in the audience is someone who this is their first time and maybe their only time ever seeing this show. And I have an obligation to them to give it, my all. And that's the way I approach it. So it never gets old.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna indulge. I'm gonna move over to an artist that I really love, that maybe not as known as Cher, but I think is just an amazing artist, which is Dale Bozio from Missing Persons, which you have been playing on and off with. It says from '97, I believe.
Dale, who is I call her my Italian Aunt Dale. Okay. Full disclosure, I call her my crazy Italian Aunt Dale.
I love Missing Persons. I sort of re-emerge myself. I've listened to the US Festival show with of course with Terry and the drums and everything.
Yes.
And I just love how she sounds, how she sings, what she does. Like it was a great. I thought she was really in front of the curve basically back then, I think.
Well, I mean, without saying anything, I mean, there are certain artists who you look at today and you go, oh, okay, like that's Dale. Like that's
Yeah.
Dale's influences. There are artists that we look at today and you look at them both like both vocally but also stylistically and you go,
Yeah,
you have Dale Bozio
and I know which one we're talking about, but
I know.
anyways, yes.
I know. So that's Dale. So I worked with Dale back in the late 90s, and I've known Dale forever, well, since the late 90s. And, I remember times when we would come off tour and she would say, oh, hey, come out to my house, and I'll give you the money for the last shows or whatever. And I go out and she's like in the kitchen making cookies with an apron on. And she's like, Nate, here, have these cookies, take these cookies. And I'm like, I can't believe Dale Bozio is baking cookies for me, right? So yeah, no, she's amazing, man. She's just there's not another Dale Bozio.
No, for sure.
She's so Dale. I just can't even. I know this is not good content because I'm not really saying anything of value, but I will say that she was probably maybe the first sort of domestic tour that I did.
Okay.
And I will just simply say I learned a lot from her, from that experience. And I can just leave it at that, And to this day, we're friends. I can text her now and go, hey, Aunt Dale. And she would go, hey, Nate, how you doing? Whatever. And yeah, she's Dale. She's Dale.
Yeah.
And those tunes are great. And
yes.
When whatever's going on off stage, when she gets on stage and does Dale, it's like, oh yeah, that's Dale Bozio.
Yeah.
That's
no, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've watched a few of the recent shows, and she's still on. She's still great. She's
and she just does things. She does things with her voice that a lot of people as they get older lose, but she still has it. All the weird squeaks and all the weird that she still does all that stuff. And I'm like, how do you still do that stuff?
No, for sure.
So yeah.
Well, we'll tell her hi from a huge fan here in Montreal.
I will. I had a lot of great adventures with Dale. I've had a lot of great adventures with D.
I mean, it's already 50 minutes. Let's get to the voice because I know a lot of people want to know about the voice. So, of course, the question you get asked a lot, and I think you've touched upon it, this linear thing, but of course, the question must get asked a lot. How did you get the voice? How did that happen for you?
Oh, Denis. If you had led with that question, this entire hour podcast would have been the answer to that question. But I'm just going to say this. I'm really going to do my best to. I will simply say I auditioned for Rockstar in 2005.
Right.
Through that audition and through that gig, I met Paul Merkovich, who is my MD on The Voice. So I met him in 2005. And I did not meet Sasha in 2005, my bass player, because Sasha and I had played together with Vanessa Carlton in 2002 or so. But it was the first time that Sasha Krivtsov, my bass player, Paul Merkovich, my musical director, and myself played together, was on Rockstar. So the timeline from Rockstar with that core trio went from sessions outside of Rockstar to Paul Stanley tour to other TV shows that, didn't necessarily see the light of day or weren't successful, to Cher touring in place in Vegas. And then ultimately from that to The Voice. So it's not as though, there was a poster on the wall that said auditions for, big time TV reality singing contest, enter here. It was more like a timeline and a progression that started. Let's see, The Voice started in 2011, if memory serves. So the genesis of what led to The Voice actually was planted in 2005 when I met Paul Merkovich with Rockstar. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So and to use that, I get, to your point, I do get asked that quite a bit. And if I could just add on to that, I would just say relationships, man. It's relationships. And I don't go so far as to say like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know, because that's not accurate. It's It's
There's
what you
more.
know.
Yeah, there's more to that because I can know someone, but if
Correct.
I won't
If you
say the
can't
word, but
deliver the goods, if you
yeah,
can't deliver the goods, it doesn't matter who you know.
yeah,
So it's the ability to deliver the goods combined with who you know. Like you
hmm,
do need to know the people to get in the door, but you also have the skills. You have to have the skills that substantiate you being in the room as well.
yeah, yeah, and to be, to connect with them, of course, because you're spending a lot of time together. Yeah,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I mean, how is a day on The Voice? Okay? So you're saying you're going to start in February, you're going to re-record for the 27th season. Congratulations, by the way,
Thank
amazing.
you.
How is a day on The Voice? What is it? You come in, let's say at 10, or how does
Well,
it work? And what do you do from during your day?
I know that we're running out of time, so I'm going to start giving you shorter and shorter answers. But first of all, what will air in February? We've shot,
Okay.
right? We've shot. And it goes through what's called post-production when they assemble the episodes and they make the determination like, okay, here's how we're going to measure this out, right? So that's been shot. And in terms of the answer to what's a day like on The Voice, it's completely dependent on what part of the show we're on at the time. If we're
Okay.
doing blinds, battles, knockouts, playoffs, lives,
You see.
versus is it a reality day where we're shooting with cameras and coaches, or are we on stage doing run throughs? Are we doing rehearsals where it's just the band and contestants? So it all varies. So
Okay.
it could be anything from a day where our call time as a band, because we're learning songs and it's only us, is 11 o'clock and we have to learn 18 songs and we wrap by 3:30. It could
Okay.
be that.
Okay.
It could be that. It could be that.
Okay.
Or
So
or it could be a day where we're shooting reality with contestants, coaches, and cameras, and we have, let's just say, 3 coaches that day. That could be a day that starts at 9 o'clock and ends at past 9 o'clock.
yeah.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So it all depends on what we're doing. It all depends on
Okay.
what we're doing.
Well, that's
Which
interesting
is
because
good.
that means,
Which
yeah,
is
I mean,
good for
it's,
me. Which is good for me because
yeah,
I think that like if like a punishment for me would be to assign me to do the same task repeatedly for the
yeah,
same amount of time, day on end, like
yeah,
days on end. That would be a
yeah,
punishment for me.
yeah.
So
Kind of a Groundhog Day
correct.
recording
Yes.
day. Yeah.
Yes. 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 That would be horrible for me. For me. For me. For me. My dad and I tell this story a lot. My father and I were on a bus one time, and I forget where we were even going. We were on a city bus somewhere, and someone got on in Sears coveralls. This is when I was probably
Oh,
either a senior in high school or maybe a freshman in college. I was in about that area. Gets on in Sears coveralls, Sears the department store,
yeah, right,
and I lean over and I say to my dad, Dad, I bet that guy like unloads and loads boxes off of Sears trucks all day, every day, like 8 hours a day. I bet that's what that guy does. I could never imagine doing that. And my dad looks at me and he goes, you don't know how you're paying your rent next month. He can never imagine doing that. So it's a balance. You know what I mean? It's a balance. It's totally a balance.
yeah. A nice humble slap for
Yeah.
Canadian.
Yeah. Completely. But yes, that was just baked in. Me, it was just baked in. Like I can't do the same thing every day.
Learning songs. You have a lot of
Yeah.
songs to learn short period of time. I found some algebra, some Nate
Yeah.
Morton algebra,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
which I'm going to show an example. Cut to showing something,
Sure.
and I hope you forgive me, but give me a sec here.
You're all good.
But here's your system that you do in order to learn a song. So I took this example from something you were doing online. I hope
Yes.
that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
And we don't need to go through the entire song. That's not the point of
Sure.
going through the entire song. People can watch the video that's online for this. You can give the link at the end. But quickly, if you just touch the first line, for instance, this is your shorthand, if you will. This is the way you work your system in order to learn songs. Can you explain a bit how you do it?
Well, this is funny.
Sorry, I didn't mean
It
to
looks-
put you on the spot. Am I
no,
putting you on the
no,
spot?
no, 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 no. You're all good. You're all good. So first of all, I represent each section of a song with an initial, and then I represent how many bars I'm doing it with a number. So for example, you see it says I parentheses hats 4, and then there's a 4 and. So if there were nothing special that I needed to know about that, it would just say I 4, intro 4. Right. But I want to let myself know, oh, I'm playing the hats in the intro. So if I
Right.
precede the number with something in parentheses, that's what I'm doing for that amount of bars. If I follow the number 4, that is the number 4, if I follow it with something in parentheses, that's what I'm doing on the last bar of those 4 bars.
Of those
So
4
for
bar, right.
example,
Right.
can you hear that?
Yep.
So, for example, this happens to be high road easy. So it starts with hi-hats, and there's 4 bars of hi-hats, and then on 4 and there's a little bang, then it kicks in the groove. So this is just 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, a Canadian artist, right? And then I go 4 and right, because I'm in there. Now you notice I've written in all caps with an exclamation point. Sass
Right.
Jordan, right?
Right.
Is she from
She's-
T-Dot? Where's she
She's
from?
from Montreal. She's from the
She's from
Montreal area.
Montreal.
Actually. Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Now you
I
say
love Sass if you're watching.
Montreal. You say Montreal.
Well,
Why
I
do
say
I have in
Montreal.
my head? I
I
have
say Montreal.
Montreal. I think
Yeah, no,
Montreal.
it's Montreal, but I say Montreal
It is
because I
Montreal.
speak English. Yes, exactly.
You're Americanizing it for dumbass me.
No,
Okay,
no.
fine. Whatever. I'm not offended. Whatever. So then we got that 4 and bop bop, and then we kick into the groove. Beep beep bop. So that's more of the intro. And then we've got our verse. It's 8 bars. And
So
then
the
end of that
V is verse, right? Okay.
is verse, exactly. It's 8 bars. And at the end of that, we've got 1 bam bam. So that's 1 E and 2 E and. So I've written the subdivisions that I'm playing as accents. Now, do I go ba ba ba, or do I go ba ba ba, or do I go ba ba ba? I don't know. I use my ears. I just play it, and as it's coming up, I go, okay, let's use my ears and make sense of this. And then I do it. And so basically, just to skip through, as you said, you've got one and that's the subdivision that I'm hitting. Then plus you're adding another bar. Exactly. You're adding another bar. You've got that hit again. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Bank, bang. Take the high road easy. Then you're into the chorus. Right. So the chorus is like 3.5 bars plus another bar. The half a bar is a bar 2. Right. Because we're in 4/4. So if I see a half, that's a bar 2. And then all this thing, it's basically the subdivision. Right there, exactly. That's basically the subdivisions written for the hits that I've got to catch. Now, and then we're back to a reintro, and then the thing goes around.
Oh, right. The
exactly. See, boom. Thank you. Right. Send your check for the lesson to Nate Morton. No, I'm just kidding.
I will. I got. Do you accept Canadian?
So that's kind of the lay of the land. It's like our initial thing. So if we were just fly through the rest of this, just for the overview, you got RI, which is the reintro, 4 bars, verse, right? Then moving on, you've got chorus down there, 7.5. You got a B for bridge down there, moving along. You got an S for solo, back to your verse. That's the hats. You break down. Second line from the bottom, you're in big. You've got that exactly. Take the high road easy. Right
chorus,
now,
right.
You see where it says lick. Right. So sometimes, like if I look at that right this very second in my head, I'm not actually hearing it. I'd have to listen to the song real quick and just reconfirm what lick is. Because the one thing about what I do is you do have to have at least a cursory familiarity with the song. Because if I just look at High Road Easy, it's like I hats 4 and in 4. Like what's the groove? What's the tempo? What's the time? I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So you have to have some sort of cursory idea of what the song is. But besides that, I really try to get this. So get this, Dennis. I try to ride the line between giving myself just enough information to know what's going on, because I don't want to always give myself too much information, because I want to leave room for there to be some flexibility and some creativity. Right?
Yeah, you're not trying to do a tribute band thing. You're trying to
And
playing.
you mentioned that,
Yeah,
exactly. And since you mentioned that, and we're talking about this song, which, by the way, I think there's a mistake in here somewhere because I went back and watched this video. I don't remember where it is, but I feel like there's somewhere. It might be something that I said in the context of writing it that was incorrect. But either way, so if anyone follows this link and sees it, and there may be a mistake, I just warn you.
Well, I agree. I agree with the rock part. That's
there you go, rock, exactly, right? Because the end is like bam ba bam ba bam ba bam ba easy, bam ba bam ba bam ba bam ba easy, bam ba bam ba bam ba bam ba easy.
Yeah, the whole
you know, it does one of those things, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I digress. Point is, I try to leave enough room for my own personality to work its way in.
Yeah.
Now, the way I approach this song when I'm playing it in a cover band, because the voice band, we're a cover band, we're very good and we're very high profile, but ultimately we're playing covers. To quote Sasha, my bass player, Sasha says, unless you wrote the song, you're playing covers. Like even if you're on tour with the artist, you didn't write the song, so to you it's a cover, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so the way that I approach the song when I'm playing it on the show with a contestant versus the way that I would play the song if Sass Jordan is our guest on the show, a little bit different. I would do a little bit deeper dive. I'd try to give Sass Jordan, because I don't know. I don't know Sass Jordan personally. And for all I know, she might walk in and be married to what the exact parts are on the record, right? And if I go, she might be like, no, that's... You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I try to give her or that artist exactly what it is. And then that's sort of a give and take. You do that, and then you kind of look at the artist and you see like, okay, how do they react to that? Right? And if they go, woo, then you go, oh, okay, maybe I have a little room. Maybe I can allow a little bit of my own thing in there more. And it's different with every artist. It's different. Every artist, you know, they're all different. Some artists do things where they spend 6 months recording a record, 8 months recording a record. And then they say, at the end of that 8 months when they go on tour, they go, okay, well, that was the studio. This is the tour. Let's make it bam. Other artists, I spent 8 months creating this perfect thing. And we're going to go out on tour and we're going to recreate this perfect thing note for note every night. And there's every gradient in between.
Yeah. What I call from a Rush show to say a Zeppelin show, where Zeppelin, it's like, okay, they're way left field and they're like 20 minutes in the same song, for instance. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to touch about this. I don't know if I hope I didn't put you on the spot. But
No, you did it.
Because I was fascinated by the algebra and the roadmap that you had. But I think it's an interesting way of doing it because, you've got so many songs to learn in such a short time, I imagine, that, something like this is necessary to be able to do the gig.
When we first walked in, the very first day of rehearsal, they walked in and they were like my first day of rehearsal on The Voice. Okay, guys, we're doing 22 songs today. Here's the charts. Boom. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. Yeah, that ain't going to do it. That's not going to work. So, Dennis, I probably have time for maybe one or two more questions, and then I might have to take my leave.
Not a problem. Okay, my next question: ever had a train wreck happen on the show while taping? How did you do with that? I'm curious.
Never happened.
No, really? Wow, interesting. Yeah.
Never had a train wreck on the show. We've had a little mishaps. We've had a contestant mic go out in the middle of a show, or we've had a contestant go to the wrong section of a song.
Oh,
and in that moment, collectively, in that split second, as a band, you decide as a band, either A, we're gonna all go to where that person just went to.
I think so, yeah.
Or we're gonna stay home and let them find it. Because you could make the mistake of going to where they went to, and in that split second, they realize they messed up and they go to the other place. So there's like a collective decision making that has to happen. But that's very rare. And no, we've never. Man, I need some major wood to knock on right now. We have never, in a blind or a battle or a knockout or a playoff or a live show, we have never had a straight up, quote unquote, train wreck.
Nice.
Never.
Nice.
In thousands of songs. And I'm kind of deliberately tempting fate right now. I'm kind of like, yeah, that's right. Come on, come at me, fate.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen in February now.
I don't think so. So, yeah. No,
Okay, two more questions because we got still about 9 minutes. Favorite artist in 26 seasons and why? Curious. Or
contestant on the show?
Yeah.
I would love to try to do like the politically correct answer and be like, they're all so special. I can't choose just one.
That's not what I'm looking for.
That'll be a lie. I'll tell you the truth. Season 1 winner, Javier Colon. It was season 1. It was a special situation. We had no one involved had ever been involved in anything like what that show was becoming at the time.
Right.
And Javier Colon has, and this is going to sound sort of corny when I say it, but it's the only way that I can say it. Javier doesn't sing. He channels. It's like when I listen to him sing, I go, what does music sound like to you? Because it's something completely different. Like, I don't know where you're getting these melodies and these lines that you're singing. I don't know. So Javier. I mean, there have been amazing singers, amazing coaches, amazing everything. But if you made me choose one contestant that's been like, just like, holy cow, it's Hav. And again, like I said, it was the confluence of him, not only him being Hav, but then also this new adventure that we were on, you know? So,
right.
That would be the answer. Yeah.
A combination. Interesting. That's not the answer I was expecting. See, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Well, now I have to ask, what were you expecting?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't have an expectation, but I didn't expect. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And would there be a gig or an offering that would make you reconsider to stay on The Voice? Did you ever have an offer that says, "Oh, come on over here"? Does that happen? I'm curious. Not to go into the whole, but I'm curious. Is there an artist or somebody who would be like, "Yes, I would go tour with that person," for instance?
I am fortunate that occasionally I have gotten cool calls here and there for things that have sort of fit within the Voice schedule. But the Voice is such a unique, I could not have designed a better fit for me.
That's interesting.
I mean, I really couldn't. I get to stay home. I sleep in my own bed every night. I drive my car, which I dig my car. I go to my favorite restaurants. I see my kids every day, and I enjoy touring very much and have enjoyed it very much and may very well do it again. I'm certainly not opposed to touring, but the Voice is such, even in the sense that I'm allowed a greater degree of leeway than I think I might be allowed if I were doing other situations. So yeah, there's not, and it's interesting too, because I'll just mention this. Once upon a time, there are artists that I would have put into what I call a drop everything category. I don't know that I would necessarily drop The Voice, but there are artists that I put into a drop everything category. Sting is one. Peter Gabriel is one. David Bowie, rest in peace, would have been one.
Which actually, I think, if I'm correct, I think today was actually his passing today. I think
anniversary of his passing. Could be. Prince might have been one. Also, rest in peace. Tom Petty might have been one. Also, rest in peace.
He was one of my favorites. Him and Steve Ferroni together.
Sure, of course, absolutely. So it's interesting because, even if I did have to put a fine point on it, a lot of those kinds of artists are sadly no longer with us. So yeah, I'm fairly content, man. As long as the Voice train keeps on running, I'll be riding down the track with it.
Nice. Well, I'm happy because, as we say in French, être sur son X, find your spot where you're supposed to be is everyone's, endeavor in life, I think. So I'm happy that's the case for you.
Yeah. It's been a great ride, and I plan to enjoy it as long as it lasts.
Cool. We got about 4 minutes left. You do lessons. So if people want to reach out,
I do lessons in person in the Garudio. I have another drum set sitting right there. I have another one of these right there, just off camera, for in-person lessons, and then I do remote lessons like this, where I'm sitting here and I'm chatting to you, and I've got, well, I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess up things, but I've got a few different camera angles and so
Okay.
on. We've
So
got,
people can see what you're doing. I see.
got
Oh, there you go.
this, you've got sort of, if I'm talking about technique, I'm here, you've got this, if I'm demonstrating where my, what's happening there.
Very nice.
And you've got like a little foot cam situation.
Oh,
So
very nice.
yeah, no, it's funny actually. There's a post that I keep meaning to do, and I haven't gotten around to it yet. But it's a picture of the very first time I ever started doing remote lessons, and it's literally an iPad Pro on a snare drum stand, turned at a 90-degree angle, with a webcam taped to the top of it with gaff tape. Like that was my first, remote lessons, and now it's kind of grown to this whole thing and an interface and proper drums and all of it. So yeah, it's been really fun, man. It's really great. When I first moved to LA, people would reach out about remote lessons, and at the time, the medium was Skype, and I made the attempt to do a couple of Skype lessons. The bandwidth thing was an issue.
I've tried as well, and Skype isn't great. No, for sure.
Well, so when the world ended back in 2020, and everyone had to go to Zoom, I would be having a Zoom meeting, kind of like I'm having with you, and I would think to myself, I mean, I could probably throw up a microphone in the room and mic my drums. I could probably do lessons this way, and it started then, and it's grown to what this is now. So yeah.
Very nice. So you can reach out to Nate if you're interested into lessons, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for your time, Nate. I think you have to go. You have obligations. So thank you so much for taking the time to talking to us. It's been a pleasure. I can't believe it. We're up to an hour 18. We kind of did it.
Did we get through all of your questions?
For sure. I'll have more, but well, it's okay.
Hey man, look, Dennis, I have to run tonight. I'm happy to be back anytime you want.
Sounds good. So thanks so much for your time. You can reach out, Nate. I believe, of course, your website is, of course, natemorton.com. And, of course, you can see Nate. When does the show air for the next season?
Oh, goodness. We'll probably premiere somewhere in March, I'm going to guess. Okay. March, April, May. Somewhere in March, maybe late February. Yeah, okay. I'll have to check.
Cool. So watch out for Nate on the Voice in BC, of course, with 27th season with many artists.
Coming right up.
Thanks so much, dude. Thanks so much. Very appreciative. Be safe with everything that's happening. I hope you're in a good area with the fires.
I fortunately am okay. I'm okay, but I have friends and I have associates who are not okay, and so it's not a good situation. But
so from Canada, we send a lot of good thoughts. I won't say thoughts and prayers. I don't want to say that, but at least
I'm the same. I'm the same. I do. All right, my brother. Well, look, thank you.
Enjoy your evening.
Get out. Love it. This was a blast. Happy to be back anytime you want, Dennis.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy Funkmaster Friday.
And you, Sir Dennis.
Thank you so much, Nate, for spending the time with us. Thank you for you, audience, for being with us tonight. Come again next week for another episode of Drumfills Cafe. Until then, all the best. See you next week. Ciao, ciao.